The distress beacon pierced through subspace like a scream in the void. Lisa Reeves, communications officer aboard the Terran destroyer Vindication, was the first to intercept it. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface as she isolated the signal, her brow furrowing as the translation protocol struggled to make sense of the alien language. "Captain," she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of the bridge. "We've got an SOS. Coordinates place it in the Kepler 442 system, roughly 6 light-years out." Captain Nick Torrens rose from his command chair, his weathered face betraying no emotion. 20 years in the Terran Defense Force had taught him that distress calls in deep space rarely brought good news. "Can you identify the species?" Lisa shook her head, her dark hair catching the blue glow of her displays. "Negative, sir. But the linguistic matrix suggests they're part of the Galactic Concordat. The message is encrypted with their standard civilian protocols." Nick's jaw tightened. The Concordat, that loose federation of species who'd made first contact with humanity 3 years ago. They'd been cordial but distant, treating Earth's representatives like dangerous children who'd stumbled into a sophisticated dinner party with muddy boots. The fact that they were calling for help was unprecedented. "What's the content of the message?" Nick asked, moving to stand behind Lisa's station. She played the transmission. Even through the translation software, the panic was unmistakable. The voice belonged to a Vexari, one of the insectoid species that dominated Concordat trade routes. "This is merchant vessel Thousand Winds. We are under attack by Krath raiders. Shields failing. Requesting immediate assistance from any Concordat military vessels. We have civilians aboard. Please, we are dying." The message cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Nick felt the familiar weight of decision settle on his shoulders. The Vindication was a destroyer designed for combat, but they were alone out here. The rest of their patrol group was scattered across 3 systems. Protocol dictated they report back to command and wait for orders. "Helm," Nick said quietly, "plot a jump to those coordinates. Maximum burn." His executive officer, Commander Hayes, turned sharply. "Sir, we don't have authorization to—" "I'm aware, Commander." Nick's voice carried the kind of authority that ended arguments. "But someone's dying out there, and we're the only ones close enough to help. Regulations can court-martial me later." The Vindication shuddered as its jump drive spooled up, reality bending around the vessel as it punched through subspace. 30 seconds later, they emerged into chaos. The Vexari merchant ship hung in the void like a wounded insect, its hull breached in a dozen places. Atmosphere vented from the wounds in crystalline plumes that caught the distant starlight. Surrounding it were 5 Krath vessels, angular, aggressive craft bristling with weapons. The Krath were one of the few species humanity had been explicitly warned about. Pirates, slavers, and worse. "They're still firing on the merchant," Lisa reported, her voice tight. "Life signs aboard the Thousand Winds are dropping fast." Nick's mind raced through tactical scenarios. 5 against 1. The odds weren't great, but they weren't impossible either. The Krath vessels were raiders, not warships. They'd never encountered human military technology. That was about to change. "All hands, battle stations," Nick announced calmly. "Weapons target the lead Krath vessel. Lisa, broadcast on all frequencies. Tell them to cease fire and withdraw or we will engage." Lisa's fingers danced across her console. Seconds later, she shook her head. "They're responding, sir. Translating now." She paused, then her expression darkened. "They're telling us to leave. They claim salvage rights under Concordat law. They're saying humans have no jurisdiction here." A cold smile touched Nick's lips. "Weapons, you have firing authorization. Let's teach them about human jurisdiction." The Vindication was a product of humanity's violent history, a species that had crawled from the gravity well of a death world, that had survived predators, diseases, and its own self-destructive tendencies for millennia. Every system aboard the destroyer had been designed by engineers who understood that space was hostile, and that mercy was a luxury earned through strength. The destroyer's railguns spoke first, accelerating tungsten penetrators to a fraction of light speed. The lead Krath vessel's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. The projectiles punched through the raider's hull, turning its interior into a maelstrom of shrapnel and decompression. The Krath responded with plasma bolts and particle beams, weapons that would have crippled most Concordat vessels. But the Vindication had been built with Earth's oceans in mind, with armor that could withstand pressures that would crush lesser ships. The attack splashed harmlessly against the destroyer's ablative plating. "2 more raiders closing, sir," Lisa called out. "They're attempting to flank us." "Missiles away," Nick ordered. Fox 3. The destroyer's missile pods opened, releasing a swarm of hunter-killers that scattered like angry hornets. Unlike the slow, predictable missiles used by most concordate species, these were equipped with AI targeting systems and evasive maneuvers sophisticated enough to make them nearly impossible to intercept. 2 Krath vessels tried to flee. Neither made it far. The remaining raiders, recognizing they'd stumbled into a nightmare, attempted to jump to FTL. The Vindication's gravity well snapped into existence, tearing at the fabric of space and preventing their escape. Within minutes it was over. 4 Krath vessels destroyed, 1 disabled in leaking atmosphere. "Lisa, open a channel to the merchant ship," Nick said, settling back into his command chair as if he'd just finished a routine drill. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a Vexari whose compound eyes were wide with something between terror and awe. Its mandibles clicked rapidly as the translator processed its words. You are the humans. The Deathworlders." Nick nodded slowly. "Captain Nick Torrens of the Terran destroyer Vindication. We received your distress call. Do you require assistance?" The Vexari's forearms trembled. "We called for concordate forces. We did not expect. Your kind does not usually respond to our frequencies." Lisa leaned toward her console, whispering urgently, "Sir, I'm picking up multiple jump signatures. Concordate military vessels incoming. At least a dozen." Nick's expression remained neutral, but internally he knew this was about to get complicated. They'd just violated about 15 different interstellar treaties by engaging in combat, without authorization in neutral space. The concordate fleet emerged from FTL, their sleek vessels forming a perimeter around the battlefield. A communication request came through immediately. A Xanthari admiral whose species looked like bipedal amphibians. Its expression was unreadable, but its tone carried unmistakable weight. "Human vessel, you have engaged in unauthorized military action in concordate-monitored space. Explain yourself." Nick stood, straightening his uniform. "Admiral, we responded to a civilian distress call. The Krath were executing the crew of a merchant vessel. We intervened." There was a long pause. The Xanthari admiral's eyes, 3 of them, blinked in sequence. "The Concordate thanks you for your intervention. However, this matter is now under our jurisdiction. You will stand down and prepare to be escorted back to your patrol zone." "Understood, Admiral," Nick replied. But before the channel closed, the Vexari captain's voice cut in, urgent and insistent. "Wait, the humans saved us when no one else could. They answered our call when we had given up hope. Perhaps..." The merchant's voice grew stronger. "Perhaps the Concordate has underestimated the Deathworlders." The channel went silent. Lisa caught Nick's eye, and despite the tension, she allowed herself a small smile. Earth had just announced itself in a language the galaxy understood, not with diplomacy or trade negotiations, but with action. As the Vindication powered down its weapons and prepared for escort, Nick knew that everything had changed. Humanity wasn't asking for a seat at the galactic table anymore. They'd just taken one.